appointment. All right, so we'll get started. Okay, it is 7:01. I'd like to call the meeting to order. The first point on the agenda is administering the oath of office to our newest board member, Keith Baker.
Mr. Baker, if you'd like to read your oath.
I do hereby pledge and declare that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the position of the Board of Education member of the Canajoharie Central School District according to the best of my ability.
Welcome.
On behalf of the board, I would just love to welcome you and to say thank you so much for agreeing to serve, and we look forward to working with you.
I look forward to
Going
it.
forward, so thank you. Okay, the next point on the agenda is questions and comments from the floor. Do we have any?
No.
Okay, and we'll move on to presentations of student directional planning. Take it away.
Amanda Rose, school counselor at the high school. Just to kind of brief off where the presentation was for last month, with our student and skill development, we're going to focus more on, we focus a lot on their interests, talents, and passions to lead them to their interests and careers and as they develop.
Yeah, just take it off.
Okay, can you introduce yourself for anyone who might not know you? Because I don't think it's 26 years.
Sherry Coteau, 5th through 8th grade counselor. And congratulations.
Thank you. All right, so our Canajoharie Middle School career development. This year we have started, middle school students have started building information and putting it in their career portfolios, mainly through Naviance. And we're developing an individual learning plan. This is mostly, we're developing it with all the 6th, 7th, and 8th grades. But specifically, I've been working at mostly with 8th grade so we could communicate that with Mrs. Rose at the high school. But certainly 6th and 7th grades are working on theirs as well, it just looks different. ILPs may include student strengths and challenges, their career and personal interests, social, emotional, and academic long and short-term goals, their action steps, attendance goals if needed, and strategies or ways to be a better student.
Can I just ask a question? You talk about their career goals. Do you just at all explore what they're passionate about or what they're really?
I'm going to talk about that. That's a good question. So what we do in the goals, we do the SMART goals. We have we make them specific, measurable, achievable, relevant. That is an important, especially important one, as well as time-based. And they're encouraged to have one academic goal, at least one academic goal, as well as one social emotional goal. And we set them in the fall, and then we regularly do check-ins, but then we kind of end it in the spring and see what our progress has been.
How do you do that? Just out of curiosity, do you have the individual meetings with kids or?
Now we do it mostly in a classroom.
Okay.
I'm actually pushing it every month in our ELA classrooms. So, and we do it more with like Naviance sessions. But yeah, and it's, everything is done through our English teacher's classroom, Google Classroom. So when things are submitted, we kind of keep track of them through that.
Thanks.
The primary focus for 6th through 8th grades is to foster self-discovery, career exploration, and success planning, mostly through the Naviance, as well as other activities. We discover, who am I? Students need opportunities to explore their character and interests as they develop their sense of self. We also look into, what do I want to be? As students explore their identities, they also want to make connections to their lives and the real world. So they need choice in their learning environments to support their new self-knowledge. And then how will I get there? So students are engaged in hands-on and exploratory activities, which will help students to tap into their need for challenging and rigorous work. They're building valuable and meaningful skills as they relate to their own specific interests and values. So again, this is like tied into those conversations, we tie those into what they've been doing in the classroom. So in relation to what their interests are, career-wise or otherwise.
Just another question. I know when I was that age, I didn't have a clue, what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go, what I wanted to be. And you find that most of them are having answers to these questions?
We have a mix, some adamantly know everything, like really specifically, but that's more of the rarity than it is the norm. Most of them are kind of still, they're exploring, I was the same way, by the way. I think I wanted to be a lawyer or a waitress, an actress, I don't know. But yeah, it's, so you kind of have, most of them are kind of in the middle of the road, just, they're exploring, and then, something that might come up for them in Naviance will be like, yeah, I actually thought about that, but, and then it gives them that opportunity to explore. And then there are some that challenge it and say, even though it did come up as an interest on their career, profile, they might be like, no, that's, how can that even be? That's not even, I've never wanted to do that, So it's all across the board, but like I said, most of them they're exploring. So these are the activities or the lessons that we do in Naviance. For 6th grade, we look into we do the career cluster finder, personality assessment, as well as learning styles inventory. 7th grade, multiple intelligences, career cluster finder. Now this was done, we don't usually do this back to back unless the kids want to retake it. I have a few 8th graders that want to retake it as well because they feel that they've changed, in a year, and they probably do, absolutely. But this year was done because of, last year was just a different kind of a year, so this is what we chose to
Really?
have.
How come?
And then 7th grade also does the career interest profile. And then for 8th grade, we do learning and productivity, which kind of like helps them to discover more of like, how they learn better, whether they need complete quiet, listen, maybe they learn better with like music in the background. And then career interest profiler, which gives them just a little bit more information that digs down deeper into what they may have found out about themselves with career cluster finder. And then strengths explorer, which clearly defines what their strengths are. And all of Naviance is based on this, the theory of the John Collins theory, which is most people are one of the 6 personality types, which is, if you're realistic, which is a doer, investigative, a thinker, artistic, creator, social, helper, enterpriser, persuader, and conventional, which is an organizer. But most people fall into more than one category. So, and kids sometimes have a hard time with this because they don't want to be pigeonholed, and I don't blame them. So they're like, yeah, well, I'm kind of like that, but I'm like, but so it's good. It's good that they do that because they're thinking about it. All right, so like with Naviance, the students are engaged in discovering their strengths, connecting their interests to their careers, setting their goals, gaining confidence in their plans, exploring different careers, connecting their interests to the career clusters, hearing from the different leaders in their field. That is something that's an option. I forgot what they call it now in Naviance, but they have that, what is it called again? Where you can go into and hear from different, leaders, people in the jobs. Some famous people, some not so famous, or some just like really real people who are going to tell you the way it is in their career. So it's nice for the kids. It doesn't always work the way we want it to. Sometimes there's computer glitches and that kind of thing. But it does give them the opportunity to kind of explore even, on their own, get some ideas, and hearing from real people. And then they begin to imagine their own future. And then my last slide. So what's entailed with like program planning for 8th grade is, we're not only, keeping track of their individual learning plan, but we're also doing those Naviance lessons and getting them ready for high school. So in December, the students came down to the high school. They heard from Mrs. Rose about high school and everything, that's entailed with high school scheduling requirements, pathways, honors classes, GPA, class rank, and the 2 different diplomas. And then they also heard from the PTech principal in the same visit. And then in January, we further discussed this and kind of did more of a review, like a game show kind of thing in our ELA classes. And so that, we helped to kind of roll out some of those courses for them, help them to understand, how many courses are being recommended. We actually saw the sheets, for the first time, and we answered any questions. So, and then there were also opportunities if anyone needed to meet with me privately, parents and students. And then we're also going to have further transition activities. Not so much the tour this year because the kids have already done that last year when we had the hybrid schedule. So mostly for students who were fully remote last year, as well as maybe new students to us this year. And then as well as we have the 9th grade transition orientation in August.
Can I just ask one more question? With all of this going on that you just described, have you seen any difference in their academic engagement as a result of this effort?
Yes, yes, absolutely. It's been challenging, it's, their focus is usually, on other things, and, we've seen some, some kind of not so good habits developing with their study habits and, more time on the phone, and, I think that, it's hard to kind of get them back. I think I think teachers and everyone have been striving really hard to get there, and we're making progress as compared to, I think, the beginning of the school year. So
breaking that connectedness to the device, which throughout so much of COVID was a necessity, has been almost trying. That and not that we're trying to take it all away, but one of the benefits of being back is being back and being able to do some things that are more hands-on and whether it's paper-based or group-based or whatever the case may be, or just being in the moment. And sometimes getting them to break this has been an ongoing struggle because it was a necessity for 2 years. But
emotionally too. It's like I find that the eye contact is a little awkward for some folks, and it's and that's I find myself saying that a lot. With me, I'm trying to because it's they're really resistant to that engaging.
And I don't know if it's coincidental, but having done this, with Fidelity this year, we've had the biggest cohort of students really looking at a P-Tech pathway and things like that we've ever had. We had more students go through the full application process this year than we ever have in my 5 years. Mm-hmm. So it could be coincidental. We just might have a group that really has this vision in terms of that pathway, or it could be directly tied to all year they've been thinking about the future and where they might want to go doing these types of indexes. So I guess as we move forward, it will give us, a better baseline in years to come. Is this directly related to this, or is it, a coincidental bubble?
It's been unique for sure.
All right, so up at the high school, we will continue 9 through 12 individual learning plans. So I meet annually with each student. We ask a series of questions each year. I track, every year I'll keep track of their answers to the same questions. I really focus in on the students' tone, their body language, answering some of these questions, which will help me tend if I need to dive into a particular area. For example, we had a student who was no idea for careers. I have no clue. So we're well, what do you like? We just kind of start venturing into that, and he was really strong suit in math and science, and he's I don't want to be at my desk, I want to use my hands, I want to be up and going, and he's really brilliant on those levels of subject. So, we just kind of sidetracked and we just started doing all this research. We were looking at things, asking more about his passions and what he enjoyed. And he left our meeting going to pursue and just look into more chemical and biological engineering as he left. And again, for the high school level, these students come back again and again and again, make more appointments, follow up. As things just kind of doors open, light bulbs go off, opportunities happen, they'll just return, and we meet multiple times throughout the year, but we all have that said appointment that we sort of just get the gist of what they're looking to go for. To kind of go off a little bit more what Dr. Brody had mentioned on when a student really wants to know what they want to do. When I have a student who I'm looking back when they're a senior and they're coming to me and consistently since their 9th grade have been like, this is what I want to do. I tend to worry about those a little bit more than those that have been like, I have no idea, my seniors who come to me that have no idea feel like something's wrong with them. You know, they're like, I don't know what I want, but my peers all know, and they know what college they're going to, and they know what job they're in the job field they want to go in, and I don't know. And I said, like, you're my favorite one, and they're like, what? And I'm like, I know that your mind's open and your ideas are flowing, whereas that person coming to me every year saying, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to do, was that just an idea that hit them young, and they've now been closed off to ideas all these years, and they've been missing doors and opportunities that potentially could have been open for them. And a lot of the times, it's sad to say, but they're the ones who come back to me as a freshman in college and are changing career paths or changing colleges because now all of a sudden things kind of hit them full bore and they realize I don't want to do anything that I've just signed up for. So I really try to make those students, and I even try to hit the ground running a little, try to get a step ahead of them. If they're like seeming, you know, squeamish or unsure that they don't want, I say, that's okay that you don't want to know. Like, let's try more classes maybe you would never even think to try, because this will let you know if this isn't what you want, then you learned it here versus getting out in the real world, spending some money and finding out the hard way. So I get all the kids, so I absolutely really enjoy seeing them grow and their growth over the 4-year period, because it's really amazing to see, especially when I ask, you know, career interest, and, you know, 9th grade, they want to be a cosmetologist, then they want to be an art teacher, 10th grade. You know, like when I see that vast, I try to sometimes take those career, because most of the times I see a lot of nurses that are into cosmetology, and, you know, there's just a lot of things where I'm like, you can probably do everything you enjoy. We just have to find that mix. We just have to kind of see where it fits. And we can work full-time and part-time at the same time, so it works. So my, another student where we ended up running into some program planning, we ended up, as we're going through these questions, realizing that the home stress and outside of school things that a specific student was going through caused a ton of stress, poor attendance. It turned us into an hour counseling session as not anything to do academically or school. It was really just this student trying to iron out, this is everything I'm dealing with, it's kind of too much for me right now, and it's setting more of a priority than I can handle with school. And so we kind of just tried to talk about resilience and how we can get through this. And, you know, this is a student who has multiple siblings at home, and he's kind of realizing at this point that, you know what, I might be smarter than my parents at this point, and this is hard for me to handle. I'm a young boy, but I'm realizing my parents may not have made the best decisions. And I said, okay, well, what does this mean for you when you're in their shoes? You know, what does this mean before you become a parent? Where do you want to go with this? Where do you want to take these? And he just started spooning off, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this different, I'm going to, you know, he's like, I guess you're never really ready for kids, but I think we can be a little bit more ready. You know, things are expensive, life out there is a lot. So it was just really good to see him trying to figure out these ideas and this world, and letting him know this, even though it's hard right now and everything you're dealing with is hard, it's going to get you where you're going. And it's hard to see that now because it's foggy. So then we just really focused on his attendance and how we can help you if you're here. We can, because a lot of our kids now in the high school, it's really their choice to come. You know, our parents at this point are like, well, you can come and get them. I don't know how, but so we really focus a lot on just trying to dig deep and getting something to get them in our doors so we can be more of value for them. So to review a transcript, this is something that seems silly. As school counselors, we tend to talk about your permanent record. This is something that it's going to last forever. You're going to have it. You're building on this official transcript, whatever that means. And I don't think we've ever really shown our students what this is. So this year, differently, prior to each student coming in, I presented them with their own transcript. And I really don't say anything when they first walk in. I said, here's your transcript. You know, take a look. Ask me if you have any questions. And they're like, wait, why is my 9th grade on there? Well, wait, 8th grade? There's classes at 8th grades. Wait, no. Like, they really start to go. I said, this is your official record. Every day you're here, you're building this record. And 10 years from now, you might need to call us and ask for this transcript for a job, or you might switch to colleges. But everyone's going to see this transcript. hanging on to. And I had a girl that was with me, she was like, wait, my 8th grade, I thought I was like a senioritis. I barely came to school, I didn't pay attention. I didn't know that was gonna follow me, and I said, well, this is good now because due to this experience, we're now going to help our 8th graders realize younger and earlier that it starts early. So I just kind of brought a copy of the generic transcript here just so I can kind of give you an idea of how I kind of let them see what this means.
She's not petite.
Very impressed you didn't trip over the wire.
I do every week, every other week.
Bettina will hit it, he just hit it now.
That's all right, I've seen it.
All right, so this is just an example, and I tried to just give them a little idea. So I use this transcript because I think it allows our students to get, it's an example that helps them really see the change. So here I just said, okay, if I'm a admissions counselor and I'm looking at this transcript, or say I'm your employer and I'm looking to hire you and I request your transcript, I said to the student, I'm gonna look at this transcript and say, okay, attendance was rough, tardy. Ooh, as a 9th grade, we had a little tardy. I don't know if I can count on this student to be present, or if this is going to be a student that I can rely on to be on time and come in the morning. I saw grades were tough. We had to withdraw. I wonder what caused the student to want to withdraw this class. Are they going to stick with the commitments that I present to them? Are they going to stay at my college? Are they committed to their program? So then,
Amanda, can I just ask a question?
yes,
Do you actually ever get calls asking you about the transcripts
from
colleges or employers?
they don't necessarily call me, but they certainly are giving these out like crazy. So we just had somebody who graduated in 1987 and needed their transcript. So down in the basement we go, digging out these transcripts. So it's super important for our students to realize your official document isn't going to go away. So it's something we really stress to them. So then here I say to the student, but you know what? Something must have happened here this 9th grade year, or we had a lot of growth, because let's check out 10th grade. The students' attendance is improving. The tardies have minimized it by half. Grades are in intense improvement here. And then now here we are in their 11th grade year. Absence and tardies have shrunk immense, and grades continue to explode. So I let kids realize there is some forgiveness opportunities. You're not just, oh, you know, we're going to have bumps in the roads. We might have some times where years are hard for us, but then I say if you're looking into college, you'll have an opportunity to write a college essay. If you have something that really sticks out during your transcript, that's your time that I want you to think about that and have your opportunity to explain your situation. And then just to kind of further on, as we continue on with 9th, 10th, 11th grade, and a senior. 9th grade, I really just spent a lot of time getting to know these kids. I continue on from Mrs. Bateau's work, and then we really dive in more to those exploring interests. A lot happens in that 9th grade year. They're just trying to figure a lot out. They're trying to just understand where they fit. And now they're no longer the big dogs. They're the little ones coming through the building. 10th grade, we focus on prereqs. We start to plan a little ahead. You know, if you're going to want to take some of these college courses, or if there's specific path you want to look into, let's make sure you can satisfy those prereqs. And 11th grade, that's where we really start to hone in on, okay, let's get to some college visits, let's get yourself, I love to do job shadowing, so at any opportunity, if I have a student on the fence, 2 years ago, there was a student who was like, I don't know, I'm stuck between accounting and a lawyer, and he's going back and forth. They said, all right, we called a local firm. It happened to be during tax season. I said, let you get in the door a little bit. They were able to, the community tends to really allow us in. I said, it's a job shadowing, so sometimes it's only a day or a couple hour commitment. So they're super open for that. And then 12th grade, we see those 12th graders a lot. We have a lot of students whose parents have no idea what the process of anything is for their senior. We see them through financial aid applications. Help me, I have kids that just come in with their parents' tax information and help me do it. They have absolutely no idea how to get through those steps, and parents even are like, whatever you need, they're calling, what's your social, what's your date of birth, you know, we're trying to get it all in. So just getting through that whole complete college process, explaining to them the different opportunities. I really work on students to try to give themselves 5 colleges to apply for. We definitely have some that come with 25. So we try to let them know that, my big thing for my seniors, if they're applying to multiple colleges and their heart is not set on one, I want to see three plans. I want you to fall in love with all plans, A, B, and C, so that at any point, whether it's money or different opportunities or location that interferes with you, you're never disappointed because you've already fallen in love with each plan and have already visualized yourself going there. And then working on resumes, scholarships, cover letters, and so on. So we're pretty busy with the seniors. I think that sounds it.
Okay, another question.
Yes.
As you know, we're preparing to hire another guidance
Yes.
person for the high school. What do you think will be the significance of that in terms of what you're able to do?
So the significance in my eyes and my vision, I truly see time for students. I feel our 9th and 10th grade do not have as much focus or opportunity and time spent as the 11th and 12th are very, very demanding of our time. And I just really see our 9th and 10th graders being more ready and more available by the time they're in that 11th and 12th grade year for that. Plus, social emotional. I just truly feel that we run, I used it before, like a triage in the ER. I just feel like we're running through problem after problem after problem, and a strong vision that I have, having a second counselor, is that ability to push in, be in classes, do more large groups. Small group is so valuable. We've realized this year by having Brenda Stetton and Michelle Nair's doing a little bit of the small group up at the high school. The small group goes to such a value strength, but it's time and it's consistency, and we've got to be able to meet with those on a regular basis. If we're going to do a six-week small group, we have to consistently meet with them same day, same time each week. Being able to do that, the students bond, they realize they're not alone, they realize that the other kids are going through the same, if not worse than them, and the vision of having that ability to do that is going to be amazing. Program planning for me, with it just being alone, it takes me just about the whole year. I'm wrapping up my sophomores now and going to dive into my freshmen next week, so I am praying to be done before April break. But again, I make my schedule, but I have to be available for everything that's walking through the door. So my schedule tends to be pushed back. So with another counselor, we're making so that our program planning can be done sooner in the year. With our program planning being done sooner in the year, we have more opportunities to help with master schedule planning for the previous year, allowing teachers to have more opportunities with their schedules and knowing more in advance. Our summer ends up being so much of trying to get the schedule done that we hit September and we are running out of time. There's not enough days in the summer, and we aren't able to critique those schedules and get them up and running for a flowing first September week there. So I feel as a school we are going to see a super value in our graduation rates. I just feel that there's just not enough. There's just not enough of me to go around. At the high school, we're really spread thin. Our students want more. They line up the door. They're asking for appointments. They're trying to get in, and if it's a college question, I get to, and I may not get to them until Friday. We have such a revolving door that we're working through. So I definitely foresee a very, very positive output for all of our students, just to be able to have more access. Sorry, I talk a lot.
Talk quick though.
Any more questions?
When you keep saying we, who is your support? Who do you lean on?
So currently right now, I really learn on, Brenda Stetton has been a value. She helps a lot with that, the IEP regular counseling, and our social worker, Lindsay Hodge. So they help so much with that, the everyday planning. There are times where I'm thankful where I can book all my program planning days and get through the 10 students I want to see today without the interruption, because I have Lindsay or I have Brenda Stetton. So they're able to take all of that flow, which would be Lindsay will then be able, she's kind of stuck with us, she's K through 12, but we need her so much up at the high school that she's kind of getting to the elementary or middle school less and less. So we're hopeful that with a new counselor, we'll be able to get her back to K through 12 where she needs to be, and we can have that more support for the regular counseling needs. And when a student comes to us, it's really for us, obviously we want to build those skills and get them to utilize all of the skills that we're working on, so that as soon as they run into a crisis, it's not always an emergency every single time they come to us. So there are times where we're like, okay, this isn't the time that we're available, we're going to come down during a free period, and then they're able to focus more on, okay, this is what I need to do, I need to wait 2 more periods, I can't be seen every minute that I want to be seen. So that's helpful too. But yes, the social worker, and we have Brenda setting us here the 2 days a week.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a question. When, maybe other people don't, but I don't. When will you be hiring for that position or interviewing for that position? The
Once
additional
we
couple?
approve preliminary budget.
Got it.
Yeah.
Do you anticipate any male candidates? I mean, in that field?
I would love
That would be great.
I just thought maybe it'd be nice to have a male.
Absolutely. I would love it.
Oh, candidate, no.
Yes, I would love it.
Anything else? All right, well, thank you guys very much. We
Thank you.
appreciate it, and it's
Thank
really
you.
great to hear about it. Thank you. Keep up the good work.
Fantastic. Seriously, best one we interviewed.
Oh, where are you going?
Need our audience.
Okay, next we'll go on to discussions. First will be the Finance Committee. Take it away, Nick.
Okay, Finance Committee goes into the budget for the most part. We talked about what our budget would look like as of today. If you want to open up that budget sheet that's in the board docs. There's just a few things we're waiting for, not much. We're waiting for just finalizing some special ed stuff still. Second of all, we're waiting for the aid runs to see what the final aid projections will look like, and that should come April 1st. Besides that, this is pretty much holding steady in terms of what our budget would look like. If I can bring you down to the bottom, you can kind of see our budget is balanced, and if you look at the Ers Reserve or any other reserves, you notice that we're not using any. So this is the first year of a full, true, balanced budget. Make sense? There's a couple outliers. We're hearing that we're going to get some additional pre-K funding. I think I've mentioned this before. We've had the same line item from the state for $348,000 or $350,000 for 10 years. And it's the same amount. But what's happened over 10 years is costs have increased. So we have sunk fund balance money into our general fund balance into pre-K, which is fine, but that's coming from our general fund. Right now in the House and the Senate and the Assembly, there's $150 million in the Assembly and $250 million in the Senate to advance pre-K funding and also to equalize pre-K funding, which means the new grant that came out this year is funding about $10,000 a student as opposed to our grant, which is $6,500 a student for the same program. So I think it was something that both the Assembly and the Senate looked at and said, well, wait a second, it's the same program, why are we funding it differently? So if that comes to fruition, we would hopefully get the money back that we're sinking into our general fund. So if I go down a little bit on your expense items, if you look at where it says capital outlay project of $100,000, we do a yearly capital outlay project, what the state allows you to do to work on, maintenance items. $100,000 doesn't get you much. You've seen it for the past couple of years. 5 doors is $100,000 now. So finally, the state is looking at raising that to $250,000, which obviously we need maintenance items fixed. But what that does for you is it actually creates a revenue source the following year because you get 90% of that aid back. As opposed to continually fixing things for $10,000 or $15,000, $20,000 a year that no aid comes back, you now create a revenue source in a way and fix your maintenance issues. So when we talked about the Finance Committee meeting, we talked about if we get an increase in that pre-K funding, which will lower our expenses up top is to increase that capital outlay to 200,000 or 250,000, get the work that we need done, in the meantime, create revenue for the following year, with money coming back. Does that make sense? And we would still balance that budget. If we did not get the full $150,000, for example, or $120,000, or whatever we end up getting, we suggested using the ERS. If you go down to the revenue side at the bottom, you see where it says use of ERS reserve. We have an ERS reserve. The state allows you to build a reserve to pay for your ERS expenses, retirement system expenses. That's a reserve that you can build as large as you want. And we have a pretty good reserve in that amount. Each year, we usually use that to balance the budget on paper. What happens during the year, sometimes you don't spend everything, so the fund balance takes care of itself. So what we would suggest is still use $100,000 of that reserve to make that capital project outlay at least go up to $200,000. And again, create a revenue source the following year. Does that make sense? Because what's going to happen next year is our pilot program is going to begin. We have a pilot program from a solar. That's good in one way because we'll get increased revenue. The problem is it starts taking away from our tax cap. Pilot program erases your tax cap. So where you're getting those funds in, your tax cap lowers. So now we're not getting funds in from the tax, right? And as you know, taxes are forever. You raise 2%, you get 2% every year. If your tax cap goes down to 1%, then you're only getting 1%. That eventually catches up to you when the pilot program is done. So we got to come up with different ways to create revenue sources to offset that as we move forward. Does that make sense a little bit? So we're looking at not only next year, we're looking at the future years as well to build. In the meantime, we have to fix maintenance items. I mean, we still had, I think Patty was on a capital project, we still had $12 million of items that we can still fix, remember. So we can chip away at $200,000 projects. So over 5 years, we've got $1 million worth of projects done. And we get 91% of that back. Does that make sense a little bit? So we're proposing, once we get the final numbers, those numbers would be offset by increasing the capital outlay project. Does that make sense to create the revenue?
And just also to explain, that is capped at 100,000 right now. Let's talk about increasing
Right, to
that
50.
so that we could do
Right.
that. You know.
Right.
Does that make sense for the most part? So we'll see what the final aid runs are, but this is pretty much our budget. A couple, like I said, special education costs maybe, the revenue piece a little bit. And what we also have built in there is, let me make sure I've got everything for you. I have already built in, if I'm missing anything, let me know, please. As we talked last time, we're coming with a lease program for the instruments, for the music, that's built in there already. We have EpiPens that we have to get, which is a bigger expense than we think. And then also, we talked about the finance committee to do some branding in our schools. You say, what do you mean branding? Our logos on doors, our logos on the wraps in terms of the columns, lettering, down in the great room in the elementary school, branding that room a little bit with, character education words, things of that nature, just to kind of bring a little bit more about us.
School spirit.
Yes, and also talk about getting our mission, vision, and values up, because it's posted, it's on the website, but the people truly know it, and we want to get that up and visible. We want to get our logo up that says mission, values, and our whole logo completely in rugs and areas that we want to make sure that again the place pops. So we would like to do that with some of the fund balance this year and some of the budget next year in the general fund. So what you do is at the end of the year, you have some fund balance over, you pay half of it this year and you pay half of it next year. And what you do with that is July 1st, you just roll it over because that's the start of your budget. So you would pay for all the branding between two budget seasons. Does that make sense? And then they would do it over the summer for us, so when the kids and everybody comes back, it would be finished. So an 8-year warranty on it. So when you think of the flags outside and the light poles that eventually faded over the time, to redo those. Out on the track and football field, there would be wind signs, things like that. In the gym, there would be banners put up for championships and things that we just don't have to again, increase school spirit and just brand our district a little bit more with our logo and the things that we put into this.
Dr. Nick, would that include like the sign at the East Hill?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, actually not the sign.
I don't know if that's maintenance of an existing.
That would include like doorways. I can show you a few pictures of what I'm talking about. I don't know if you can see it too much, but you can see that the logos are on the doors in the front, and you would brand your logo. So as you come to the front doors, you would see it as you're coming.
So what's the logo? What logo are you using?
We would use two. We'd use the C, we'd use the cougar, and we also use the one that has the mission values and
The puzzle piece?
yes.
Hmm.
So we would put that in key areas. And what they would do is once we agreed to move forward with it, they would create the video illustration or the pictures and show us what it would look like. So we can see if maybe we want that one instead of this one. Maybe we want it's too busy over here. We can change this. So once we agreed to move forward with them, we can kind of get some drawings and renderings to see what we like.
What's the total cost you're looking at?
Everything from both sides, outside, inside, would be anywhere from $50,000 to $60,000. That's everything. So
And that would be in all 3 schools?
all 3 schools. Yep. And on the outside, in terms of your, like I said, your flags out front, your banners, your all-state banners, for example, that we have 4 all-state champions that we never we put banners up for, we'd like to do as well. So that's something we would have to, if this would be included in the budget, and we'd have to agree on spending if we had the fund balance at the end of this year. So that's something as a board, you can think about, and then next meeting, we have to approve a budget. We hopefully have the aid runs by April 1st, which we would fill in what we just talked about, and then we can approve or disapprove or take things out and figure out what we want to do from there. Remember, they're one-time hits too. They're not continual expense items every year. Like when we hire a position, that's every year, right? These are one-time hits, kind of like when you buy a tractor or you buy distance learning equipment that we did, that was a one-time hit. So it's not something that we have to sustain every year in the budget. That makes sense a little bit? So I don't think there's ever official branding done. I know you had flags outside when the school was built. I think they eventually faded and kind of got ripped and, 8-year warranty is great. Last school I was at had a 4-year or 5-year warranty. So it allows us to kind of keep it for a long distance at a time without them falling apart or ripping or anything like that. So, make sense a little bit?
Also, I'd just like to say, just for context, I've been on the board since 2007. We always have a balanced budget, but this is the first budget I've ever seen that's balanced without using reserve funds, which is really a wonderful and promising development, and hoping we can keep it up. That really gives us a little bit of breathing room when issues come up going forward. So I'm just really happy that we can produce that. It's really a first in my experience with this.
That includes I think, all the negotiation numbers too as well. So that's kind of I think we built in there the worst case scenario negotiation numbers. So, the teachers union. So, and we're prolonging our reserves, which is nice. Our idea, when I showed you the reserve balance sheet, we wanted to try not to touch the reserves until 2024. And right now we're through 2023, we can go one more year. And then, strategically, let's face it, you built a ERS reserve for a reason. You offset your ERS costs. So eventually we'll start to use that as we go through. Next year, again, will be tougher. You know that the pilot program is going to be tough. We don't know what the the cap will be, but it'll definitely be lower than what we're accustomed to, so.
So you're still anticipating more retirements, right? Is it because of the retirements you're getting this extra money, or?
Well, we're getting an increase in aid, which didn't help us. We added a $330,000 anticipated aid reduction that we thought, remember, the state was gonna take money for us. So we built that in last year, because we were anticipating, remember, our governor was gonna take every quarter money. That never happened, so that helped us offset. And then, as we know, we renegotiated the health insurance, so all that, when we were using $500,000 to $600,000 a year to balance the budget, we've now got that down. We've got our continued 3% increase in foundation aid, which we weren't sure we were gonna get at all. And that $330,000 that we budgeted was a very smart thing to do, because we thought we were gonna lose that money, but that was a line item built into our funds. So, and now you're consistently doing a capital outlay project every year, so again, that's increasing some revenue for you each year as well. That kind of makes sense a little bit. A lot of pieces. And again, we're talking about the tech aid, if you remember, a 3-hour monitor for the middle school, a guidance counselor, and a first grade aid because of the needs for special ed. And we're also talking about a 0.5 speech, correct? Because of the needs right now, the students that we have. We're gonna split it with Fonda, kind of like we do at Wheelerville with music. They needed a 0.5 as well, so it worked out perfect. It's hard to hire a 0.5 teacher. So now we can hire a 1.0. But that could change too, meaning, in a year, we might not need those, the needs for this speech.
Just seems like we're spending more and more and more, yet we're able to have money set aside. So the balance of that, I've been around here for a long time too, and seeing how we kept losing all this time, and now it seems like we're gaining. So where's the gaining coming from? Is that from, the renegotiation, from the money, from the retirement?
Retirees,
Yeah.
renegotiation, retirees.
So I'm thinking down the road, if you're going to drop your tax cap from 2% to 1%, are we anticipating people would be retiring at a certain rate as we go along to help out, or?
No, I'm saying our tax cap is what the state gives us.
Right. Well, I thought you just said because of the pilot program that it would drop down to 1%.
It would drop down. I'm saying we could be seeing like a 1%.
Oh, it could be. It's not going to for sure.
It all depends, and correct me if I'm wrong, depends on what our.
It's definitely gonna have a major impact.
It will definitely have a major impact, right?
Is that for 1 year or?
No.
Well, I mean, it'll impact us more the first year that it hits, and then going forward, it won't be as drastic, but definitely next year when we get that pilot.
We'll
Our
still
tax
see it.
cap is not gonna be 3%, it's gonna be less. The cap is already gonna be less.
Don't know exactly that number.
Right.
I just threw the 1% out there, but.
Just get nervous.
Oh, yeah. But, if you remember the history of budgets, which you've been around, every 8 or 10 years, you had a 10 or 12% increase. And you weathered the storm. When there wasn't a big, inflation year, if you look at everyone's budget, it was 8, 10, 12%. That's about 8 or 10 years when you don't do that anymore. It's 2, 2.5, 1, 2, 2.5, 3, and eventually hits you. So that's why I think when we talk about the pilot, we've got to be a little careful on futuristic. If it goes 1%, for example, remember that's 1% forever.
Right.
So we got to think of maybe going the majority and going 2%, for example, and getting that 61% to get it through. Just so we're thinking in the future that we don't lose that. We went out at 0 last year, but it was tough with $4.7 million staring us in the face to tell the public that we're going to raise your taxes as well. So I think we did the right thing and directly said to yourself, geez, that money's gone forever, and it is. Even if you went up 0.75 last year at $60,000, that's 10 years, $600,000 to the school district, right? That we kind of missed out on. But again, the situation, we had to look at it and do the right thing. So I think, next year will be tougher. But I think if we do the stuff we're talking about, the capital outlay, one-time hit expenses, that money will be available the year later. So for example, if we do this, that money's not there. That money's there for revenue the following year. If we do the capital outlay project, there's more money revenue. So we're creating revenue sources the year later when the cap gets lower. That makes sense?
Okay.
And we're creating future revenue sources because if we continue the capital outlay project every year, we're getting more money back as opposed to spending that by fixing things. Does that make sense? That's a lot of throwing at you. I know. That's a lot. So. my mind runs with all that stuff in there and maybe that come across that way. It
No,
didn't.
I understand.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely things that have happened the last 2 or
Scary.
3 years. Yes, but you know what's good about it though, is we have a reserve set. And remember, we also have a downtown that is hoping for revitalization, which can also add another revenue source. And they're still talking about trying to equalize lower income districts when they start to hit their total foundation aid. Meaning, you just can't say to the lower income districts, you hit your foundation aid, you're not gonna get any more aid for forever. So they're still talking about trying to still build in a 2 or 3% every year, no matter what. So that will help us keep getting over the hump too, for the most part. So does that make sense? A lot of budget stuff? So next meeting will be a budget approval. It won't look much different than this. It'll only look like what our aid run will be, maybe a little bit more of the special education, but besides that, that's what it'll look like. So if you have any questions leading up to it even, send me an email or a text. And if you have any questions that night, obviously bring them up because we have to approve a budget that evening. Leah, I missed anything or?
I don't think so.
And when we say approve a budget, it's the final item, it's not necessarily the total line item.
It's, right, it's the overall dollar amount. I mean, you could still shift within these categories.
Right.
The capital outlay would have to be set.
Yes.
That number would have to be set. It's just the overall number.
Yep.
And the tax cap, the tax amount.
Correct. Any other questions on it? All right.
Okay, so we'll move on to approvals. First, I'd just take a second to explain to you what I'm gonna just say right now, which is I'm gonna ask for a motion for a consent agenda. And what that means is we would agree to discuss all of the items, but then just vote once on all of them.
Okay.
And it just speeds things along rather than voting on each item. Any member can ask that any item be removed from a consent agenda so that, if you want to have a special vote on that particular item, and that happens periodically. So I just wanted to let you know what I'm.
Good, thank you.
Okay, so I would ask for motion for consent agenda.
Motion.
Second? Anyone? Okay. Thank you.
That's your job now.
Okay, first item is the calendar. Any questions on the calendar?
The only difference in this calendar to last year's calendar is one shift. Remember, we had the Friday the 23rd off this year because it was the Friday before Christmas. Now you have the 2nd off of January. That's the only shift in the calendar from last year to this year. Just shifts a day. Because as you know, Christmas and New Year's shift up a day.
Okay, so I'll give you a minute to just look through it and see if you have any other questions.
It's really hellish that the elementary assessments are directly after
Yes.
break.
I didn't put too much thought into
It's
that. So.
extremely rude. Speaking as an ELA teacher, sorry.
Just to give you a heads up, some school districts are going with the 23rd off too, but they're only going to 2 snow days. I'd be afraid to go to 2 snow days because if you go to 3,
No.
you know what's coming first, right?
Right.
April break, and you know what April break turns into, right?
Yeah.
So,
For administrators.
yeah. So again, same schedule, shifted up 1 day for Christmas break, holiday break, excuse me.
Okay, any other questions or comments? We good to move on?
Yeah.
Okey-doke. Next thing is, the agreement with the CABVI.
That's a special ed service for
That's
a new
the
student.
vision one, right?
Yep.
Okay.
It's a new student.
Any changes in that?
It's a new student, so we already have contracts with this agency. It's a younger student that is new to us that requires these services.
Elementary kids?
Any questions on that? Okay, we'll move on to a transportation contract.
This is also special ed. Now that COVID restrictions are releasing, this student requires transportation from their residential placement to their academic placement. So that's why this is now coming up in the month of March versus in September.
And why is it only a 30-day thing? Is it just gonna?
So we put this out to bid. We put this out to bid in June in anticipation for this year, but then we never actually signed the contract because of COVID restrictions. This particular student was not attending in person, so we didn't require that. Now that it is, we have to sign the contract, but it needs to be re-bid for the service. So it's an emergency, so we can get the student in school, and then we have to go through the bidding
Oh,
process.
so we'll see this again next month.
I'm gonna start driving,
Okay.
look at that, 274 per
I just couldn't understand
day.
the 30-day period.
It just can't be easy. We gotta do all these little steps.
Any other questions? Okay, I would ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion.
Second, all in favor?
I,
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to personnel. Again, I would like to ask for a motion for consent agenda.
Motion. Second.
Okay? Nick, you want to talk about amending the termination?
Yes, this is a situation, one of our employees who actually got the paperwork, as we talked about, for retirement. So this is just amending the termination to saying now it's a retirement.
Any
then-
questions?
And the long-term leave and the special education leave is the person went out earlier than anticipated with their maternity leave. So we had to amend the leave so we can amend the leave for the substitute. So they went out like a couple weeks earlier than. Yeah, 3 weeks earlier.
Yeah.
Okay, and then appoint coaches. Any questions there?
Just unpaid volunteer coaches.
Is that for this year?
Yep. Nice to have that many people want to help
That's great.
for free.
Okay, then I would ask for a motion to approve the personnel.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
I,
Opposed? Thank you. Moving on to new business, HFM BOCES annual meeting.
In person this year.
That means you get dinner.
Yes.
Good.
And the deadline to RSVP is tomorrow at noon, so if anybody would like to let me know tonight or tomorrow morning. And I'll give that to them.
Just to let you know, if you haven't ever attended one of these, they're usually quite interesting, and there's some presentations. But also, what's wonderful is that the dinner is prepared by the students who are in the BTEC program, not BTEC,
CTE.
The CTE program
The
at
BOCES program.
our the school, and they really do a good job, and it's really a fun thing, and you don't go home hungry. I can tell you that.
The issue is it's on the same night as you're getting your award, so we're not gonna be able to make it. So I already told Dr. Ziskin, and he obviously said no, without a doubt, we'll go to your award ceremony. So priorities. So this goes into our next piece, which is our Excellence in School Board Service Award to Dr. Brody, who has put in a lot of time, not only in our district and our community, and really cares a lot about people and make sure our district is always successful and lends a helping hand. I've been in 4 school districts, and you are very involved and very caring, and I haven't seen that in the districts I've been in, so. Students do not prepare that meal that night,
It's me.
That'll be Dr.
have pizza and wings at my house. That's on the same night, obviously, down at the Franklin Terrace in Troy. It'll be a nice night for him, and there's about 5 or 7 of us coming, so hopefully they're supportive.
Great.
Okay, I would ask for a motion to move into executive session.
Don't have to.
Do I have some?
Oh, okay. Is there a second?
Second, all in favor?
I.
Okay, hey, thank you guys, have a good evening.
If we have an odd question, Nick, and I'm new to this.